I would now like to introduce to you Mr. Alywn Vorster.
Thank you, Krista. Dear dignitaries, members of the audience, and particularly our esteemed guests and visitors from Malawi. We are pleased to present this very interesting Lindian story to you today. I would also just like to acknowledge our chairman and founder of the company who's here with us today, and many of my Lindian colleagues, even some of them who traveled from Malawi to join us today. The next slide is obviously the normal disclaimers. This is the corporate information. Ordinary shares on issue, about 1.15 billion shares. Market capitalization of about 130 million Australian dollars. Cash in the bank around 13 million Australian dollars. Largest shareholder is our chairman, Kangankunde Holdings, with more than 10%. If we look at that share price curve for a moment, you would also have heard as an audience about the Losondo curve. I think there were speakers this morning who also raised that point. The Losondo curve is a very well-known curve in the mining industry where they match company performance or company share price with a stage of project development that they are in. And normally you start from a very low base when you find the company, you establish the company or the project, and then there's excitement when you go through the exploration phase and there's discovery news and so on, and the share price normally go up significantly in that phase. Then there is a period of studies and approvals where the share price performs less well than what management normally expect and shareholders expect. Then you reach a stage where you have finished the studies, where you have funded the project, and that you are constructing and developing the project. In that phase, normally the share price performs quite well, provided that you remain on target with your schedule and cost. So there's always a lot of provisos around it. Now, on the chart there is a really short-term picture of the Lindian share price. If I extended that back quite a while, it actually fits that Losondo curve very, very well. 18 months ago, share price was 35.40 cents. 18 months ago, the rare earth prices was also $150 per kilogram, so 3 times higher than what it is today. It was the exploration phase of the company, there were discovery news and so on, and the price was high. Then the rare earth prices dropped, and we are now in that phase where we were going through feasibility and approvals, and obviously it's a concern to us and everyone that our share price is fairly low. I believe we're at that bottom stage now. We are seeing green shoots of the industry prices recovering, and I believe we are in that construction phase very soon when we find the funding solution where we would see the good news. So that hopefully gives you a bit of context around how we look at the share price at the moment. Now, Lindian is present in 3 African countries at the moment. We have excellent bauxite assets in Guinea. We have early stage bauxite asset in Tanzania, and we have the wonderful Kangankunde asset in Malawi. And last night at the state dinner, when all the different countries were present and were introduced and people applauded them, we cheered for Guinea and we cheered for Tanzania, but we shouted by far the loudest when Malawi was introduced. That is where the key asset and key focus for the company is. Today, I would like to focus on Kangankunde primarily, and I hope that I will cover 6 issues, challenges, and topics on Kangankunde to convince you what a wonderful project this is. Global supply, we are very, very confident in how the global supply picture is looking for rare earths. This is a tier 1 asset, there is no question. In my 30 years of working across large companies and small companies, this is the standout mineral asset that I've ever been involved in. And that was the main reason why I decided to join a few months ago. CapEx and OpEx, extraordinary results from the feasibility study. We have low CapEx and low OpEx, lower than any of the peer group companies that I am aware of. Return on investment I will touch on. We are lucky with the cooperation and support from the Malawi government that we are fully permitted, ready to go. And the scalability of the asset is enormous. I will refer back to that. So most of you would already know what rare earths is about, where it is used. As pointed out on the right side of the slide, NdPr oxide is a critical input in all high rotation devices. So if you talk about permanent magnets in electric vehicles to drive the axles, wind turbines, Dyson hair dryers, robotics, anything with a high rotation that needs a small, lightweight, permanent magnet, that's where the NdPr fits in. On the left-hand side of that slide are some thematics that support why NdPr will remain and become more and more in high demand into the future. Examples of that is the well-publicized energy transition towards a more cleaner energy, but also, very importantly, the geopolitical power shifts that are happening, as we point out there. And I would like to refer you to a Reuters article published on October 28, 2010. And you can just punch it into Google, and this came up when I Googled it the other day. So 2010, US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said on Wednesday she hoped a Chinese statement that it would use rare earth minerals as a bargaining chip meant that the trade should not be interrupted. Earlier that day, a spokesman for the China Ministry of Industry and Tourism said China could use its dominance in global rare earth supplies, vital to many high-tech products, as a bargaining tool with foreign companies. Hillary Clinton said, "I haven't heard the detail about the Chinese statement today, but I would welcome his clarification. And I hope that it means trade and commerce around those important materials will continue unabated." At the same time, Hillary Clinton said, "Because of the importance of these rare earth minerals, I think both the minister and I should be aware that our countries and others will have to look for additional sources of supply." She concluded by saying, "This must serve as a wake-up call to the Western world. So we would welcome clarification and additional supplies being developed." So this was in 2010. And I believe, although recently we are hearing a lot of positive noises about governments being open to support the rare earth industry, we lost a decade where I don't think the Western world has done enough to create that independency better than what we are seeing as we speak today. In terms of demand supply, we used an independent group, like most of the mining groups, doing price forecasts for study purposes. We used, in this case, a very experienced group of experts from the UK called Project Blue, and they based their analysis on demand supply on fundamental build-up from the ground floor up, how demand and supply will correspond into the future. The long and the short of this is, on the chart, there's about 55,000 tons per annum NdPr, not rare earth concentrate, NdPr being produced and used in demand at the moment, 55,000 tons per year. The forecast is that by the end of 2030, that would be more than double. So there's another 50,000 tons needed. I will come back to it, but just for scale sake, we are planning to produce about 1,600 tons per annum. Additional supply of 50,000 tons is needed in the next 10 years. So you can see the challenge for the world to fill that gap. And then when you get to 2050, there's 180,000 tons of NdPr needed to feed the electrification of the world. So a massive task ahead for the world. If we turn back to the Kangankunde project, I won't try to duplicate the wonderful and inspirational message from Minister Monica just now on Malawi as a stable jurisdiction. I can absolutely testify to that in my brief experience as CEO of Lindian, that we have received wonderful positive cooperation. Kangankunde is located in the southwest of the country, not too far from the city of Blantyre. The slide has the history of how the Kangankunde project came about. Early exploration already started in the 1950s, 60s, and it was only really in the last 10 years that serious exploration and studies started happening. Lindian currently owns 67% of the company that holds the title to the project, and we are aiming to go to 100%, and we have the agreements in place to go to 100%, basically at the time of our election, on or before commercial production. This slide is a condensed summary of a very complicated geological picture from the region in Malawi to the actual deposit at Kangankunde. But I tried to summarize it on one slide just to give the audience a snapshot of the geology. It's obviously located on the southern end of that well-known in geological circles, the Great East African Rift System. It's a carbonatite intrusion, and it is dated, as you can see on that slide, 123 million plus minus 6 million years old. Now, it's an amazing precision that, by the scientists to come up with the plus minus 6 million years, but, I'm sure Stanley Nyama, the director of the Malawian Geological Survey, will be able to provide you with more information. I can't see Stanley here at the moment, but he is at the Malawi booth, and they've done a lot of work on the dating. On the middle slide, you will see that is the mountain of Kangankunde there. It has a central zone of magnesium calcium to iron magnesium carbonatites there, and that is the main host of the rare earth oxides. Then it has concentric zones around it with what we call the feldspathic wall rock, also containing relatively high grades of rare earth oxide, but it is really, wall rock in this case, not part of the main ore body. I've worked for other rare earth companies in the past, and the wall rock in this case contain higher rare earth oxides than the main ore body of some of the other Australian hard rock monazite ore bodies. In terms of the mineralogy, it's primarily monazite. Very importantly, a very big grain size, up to 2 millimeters. Very low thorium, low uranium content, so some of the lowest radioactive rare earth projects that you will see anywhere. The high density, higher again than what I've seen in other peer groups, will differentiate it when we talk about the flow sheet and the metallurgy and how we will process this to form a concentrate. It is about the grain size and the relative density of the monazite minerals. This is a simple slide to just show you the drilling to achieve the mineral resources and ore reserves. That is the central core zone that the bulk of the 2022-2024 drilling was done in. We have drilled about 140 holes. More than 30 of it was diamond holes, 22,000 meters of drilling, 30,000 assays done on the rare earth component itself. We've only drilled, I have to say, to 350 meters. So the current resource and reserve come out of the top layer, 350 meters. But please note, on that bottom, so you can see most of the drill holes there up to that depth, we have put 2 holes in up to 1 kilometer, and there is no change in the mineralogy. The mineralogy goes to 1 kilometer unabated. In fact, the bottom of some of one of the 2 holes is higher grade at 1 kilometer than what we find at surface. So this is absolutely enormous. That allowed us to declare to the ASX an exploration target of 400 to 800 million tons of rare earth oxide. 260 million tons of that was converted to mineral resources, JORC, and 23 million tons of that to ore reserves. You may ask, why are the ore reserves so low? It's all we needed, and I will come back to that. But we can convert tens and tens more million tons into reserves if that is required. So this is a simple snapshot of the production picture that came out of the feasibility study. We will aim to produce stage 1, modest starting project with massive upside, but we will only produce 15,300 tons per annum of rare earth, of concentrate, and of that 55% rare earth oxide grade, which then leads to 8,200 tons per annum of rare earth oxides and 1,600 tons per annum of NdPr. And remember, you only get paid on the NdPr, so that is the final proof of payment that you will receive. We believe that the picture allows us, from funding confirmation, we will have first production within 15 months. 45 years from the current 23 million ton ore reserves. Imagine if we convert a further 60, 80, 100 million tons to ore reserves. So we were quite proud when we met the government recently, when we said to them, this is a 100-year, a 200-year potential mining project. It is enormous. It can become as big or small as what Malawi and the owners of the project want it to be. On the mine design and operation, I won't dwell on the detail, other than to say, again, a very modest amount of mining need to be done. We are mining 10 times less than many other hard rock rare earth projects, given that whole mountain is the ore body. There are no wastes that layers of waste or components of waste that we have to remove. The strip ratio is less than 0.2 to 1. So of that 520,000, we will put 450,000 tons of that to the crusher or through as plant feed. So incredibly low stripping ratio, lowest that I've ever experienced in my mining career. The processing plant, as I said, 450,000 tons per annum plant feed. Very simple flow sheet due to the mineralogy. It's not that we are trying to take any shortcuts, but virtually we do not need a flotation circuit. The feasibility study actually included a small flotation circuit to take out some of the sulfides. When we look at it again, even after the study, we determined that it is probably not even necessary to put the flotation in. The sulfides aren't high enough to attract market penalties in the sales process. So what you have is gravity separation, magnetic separation, very standard, very similar to what you find in mineral sands projects. In the rare earth industry, the flotation circuit is normally 50% of the capital cost, and it could also contribute 50% of your operating cost. So by us even avoiding a flotation circuit is another factor that shows why our CapEx and OpEx are exceptionally low. The results of the study then spat out the following results. $40 million US dollars, CapEx, exceptionally low for reasons I mentioned before. The OpEx will be $2.92 per kilogram REO, about $3.70 all-in cost delivered to an overseas destination. That is lower than any of the current producing rare earth companies that I'm aware of. The NPV of the project, nearly $800 million US dollars, and an IRR that just blows the lights out, 99% IRR based on the numbers that we've run. I think very importantly for us is to look at not many rare earth projects at the current price levels are profitable. This project, based on the cost structure, can be profitable even at the low prices. When we did the feasibility study, the spot price during the last 6 months was around $50 US per kilogram NdPr, and we are still making a modest EBITDA of 11 million per annum. And there are not many companies that can show that. I'll come back to the pricing. The spot price has changed, but we can talk about that in another slide. On the community engagement, obviously, like all responsible companies, the 3 pillars of ESG, the environment, society or social, the community and H&S, and the governance part of it. The proof of the pudding for us is the fantastic relationship formed by Lindian in the 2 years that we've been involved in the project, and the cooperation with government, where we resettled recently within a short period of 6 months, in a very positive manner, resettled more than 100 families affected in the immediate mining area to the area outside the mining lease. That was all done in cooperation, hand in hand with the local government support. And we had positive cooperation by everyone involved. In terms of permitting and the government, we are fully permitted. We have environmental and mining leases granted, and the moment we have funding in place, we can start construction and mobilize to site. In terms of the government engagement, as I said earlier, with Minister Chang Anamuno, Minister Monica, the Principal Secretary, the Director General, members of Parliament, and the officers, it's just an incredible experience. When the chairman and I went to Malawi in July, Minister Monica was supposed to be traveling at that stage, so we didn't book a meeting with her, and we bumped into her the previous Sunday evening, I think, in a restaurant, and she opened a diary and she invited us in the next morning at 8 o'clock to walk into her office and brief her on the project. I have never in my life in Australia been able to walk into any minister's office at such short notice. And I hope that gives you an indication of open to business and a positive approach towards our company. In terms of the benefits that we see, and we know that mining normally, for every dollar that mining generates into the economy, there's normally $3 to $4 flow-on effect. So don't see these as absolute, but Our financial numbers show that we will pay in taxes, royalties, once we are into production, about $50 million US per annum to the Malawian government. The multiplier effect of that, as I say, could be 4 or 5 times. Over the life of the project, more than $2 billion. And this is all just on the modest stage 1 calculations. If we expand, it could be a completely different story with $10 billion, most likely possible in terms of direct impact on the economy. So many people ask the question when you go to Sydney and Melbourne and other places, Malawi, some of the investors even, confuse Malawi with Mali. So it is very important that people understand how Malawi operates. I think proof of the pudding is even a large, reputable, credible mining company like Rio Tinto recently investing in Malawi is another proof of the pudding that there's confidence in the story. The NdPr price is ticking up. Very importantly, that right-hand slide is showing we are hitting $60 today. First time in, I think, about 9 months that we are hitting the $60. Is this the turning point? It could certainly help us with our funding discussion and provide more confidence that we are in an increasing market. I will conclude in a second. We are heading towards FID. We have finished the study. We are improving the project on a day-by-day basis. We have appointed people in country now. We are building our team. We are closing in on FID. We are working hard on funding options, and we have a few options on the table. All we need is that first 30-40 million US to pull the trigger and let the construction contracts mobilize to site before December. This is the final slide to summarize the messaging. It's a wonderful project, and we are getting ready to develop it. Thank you very much.